Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of the Viking Chats, and I'm delighted to be joined today by none other than Mr. Simon Gates of Opening the Gates.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bud, cheers for joining me. So for those agents out there living under a rock, who are you? Tell us a little bit about you.
Simon Gates, founder, owner of Opening the Gates, self-confessed estate agency and data geek. Always wanted to be an estate agent and then transitioned over to the dark side of prop tech just before COVID and worked at Home Search when it was a startup. And then just under 3 years ago, 3 years ago, launched my podcast, Opening the Gates to More Listings. And off the back of that, I launched my own consultancy business, helping estate agents from increasing market share, charging higher fees, those sorts of things. Started that 3 years ago, so that's kind of who I am. What's my name, who I am and where I come from.
Nice. So we were chatting a little bit before this. So let's talk a little bit about your agency career before this.
Yeah.
So whereabouts, what kind of patch were you working in?
So I worked in 3 different offices during my estate agency career, which would have been Oni, which is the birthplace of a pancake race.
There we go.
And the hymn Amazing Grace. I've actually been in the house where it was written in the study in the top floor of that house. Cool. There you go. Toaster, or Towcester for the Americans.
Towcester.
And then Newport Pagnell, home of the service station on the M1. So I worked in those 3 offices. So it's kind of Buckinghamshire, Bedfordshire, Northamptonshire, kind of triangle. And that was for Michael Graham, Dozen Brancher. So I did that from the age of 16 in 2007, did work experience, weekend assistant, negotiator, manager.
So how long were you an agent for, roughly?
From 2007 to 2020, if I include the time I was a weekend assistant.
So 13, yeah, so, I mean, it still counts.
13 years. I mean, I spent more time in between 07 and 09 in an estate agent office than I did at school doing my A-levels. Because I had no interest in, I was done in education at GCSEs, but my parents were like, I think trying to get the idea of being an estate agent out of my head. So like, let's just go do A-levels.
So that's really interesting because sorry to cut you off there, but like I find like quite a lot of people, myself included, fell into agency. Like I set out to be a professional actor, very quickly realised how batshit that was, and then it was that pivot of what can I go and do where there's an all right bit of money to be made and I don't have to go back to uni to retrain. But it sounds like that was different for you. You already had that kind of idea in your head and that passion. Where did that come from?
My godfather owned the estate agent that I worked at. And I saw him driving around in very nice cars. Kids went to great schools, nice holidays. He had a housing empire.
And things that godfathers and uncles do always tend to be quite like... Yeah. You're never quite drawn necessarily to what your parents do, but your godfather or your uncle, it's like, particularly if they're successful, it's like...
Yeah, so he was super successful, but in the summer of 07, I actually did work experience for him. I did work experience at Houses of Parliament and for Farrers, which is the royal family's law firm, or was at the time. My parents were like trying to show me, let's say, the bright lights of London and, you know, there's bigger and better things than just working on the local high street as an estate agent. But after that summer, they took me to the pub for dinner.
I'd imagine half of that stuff put you off, didn't it? It was like, no, I definitely want to be an agent.
Yeah, well, it's. I think it was interesting, the being in Parliament, so it would have been 07. I feel like it was kind of Tony Blair was just leaving and Gordon Brown was just coming in.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I might have even been on the balcony when Tony Blair might have even done his last speech in the Commons or something, which is at 16, I didn't understand, but that's quite a crazy thing to see.
Yeah.
But I, as much as, and I will hold my hands up for this, we do give a lot of shit to MPs, rightly so, a lot of the time. But I couldn't believe the hours they worked at 16. Like, it was crazy. And it was the same at the law firm as well.
Yeah.
The hours were insane. Whereas I go back to 2007, the market's booming, right? It was kind of, I was like, God, they're driving nice cars and they're going to the pub or a bar after work, and it didn't seem that hard. At the time, it's like you're answering phones and just be a nice person and do what you say you're going to do.
Having a chat.
Just having a chat, really. I was like, I think I can do that. I don't need to go qualify and anything like that. You learn on the job. So yeah, that's what appealed to me.
I mean, I think that's something really interesting, just to kind of tangent off a bit. It's something I find really interesting about the whole conversation about ROPA or the licensing, the regulation of agents. And I suppose it doesn't really harm it in other countries where it is licensed because it just changes the attitude. But I think what's really interesting about agency, and I think what has driven a lot of the more innovative agents within the marketplace and suppliers to agents, is it's quite a common story that education didn't sit right. That kind of classroom formulated structure, academia.
I do more education now than I was done with education. But I think
because it's relevance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you sit in a geography classroom and it's like, great, I'm so excited that's how an oxbow lake is formed over 200 years.
So I said to you before we hit record, I was at an event last night, Daniel Precy releasing his latest book. And he's talking about how they don't teach entrepreneurship in school. And he's like, they're teaching you Pythagoras theorem and pi. And it's like, you're going to have to work out all these numbers because you won't have a calculator when you're out in the big bad world. It's like, well, I've got a phone now that has
that all went out the window, didn't it? You won't always have a calculator in your pocket. No, I will have something that could launch a rocket into space if I put. Because that's the thing, right? Isn't it? The phone in your pocket now is more powerful than the computers used by NASA.
Okay,
launch the first rocket to the moon or something like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And the learning you can do on the phone. So on my way over here on the tube and walking between the tube and your office, I've got a podcast in my ears.
Yeah.
When I'm walking the dogs every day, podcast in my ears. When I'm driving, podcast in my ears. If you'd said to me when I was 16 and leaving school, oh, by the way,
you're going to spend 80% of your free time learning,
I'd be like, well, that sounds really boring and shit.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love it. And you said it, I think, a couple of minutes ago, is finding that passion for it. And I think I was relatively okay as an estate agent, but I wanted to be even better. And as much as, again, there are agents out there who love to hate Rightmove, and there's a whole tangent we could go off on that. But when I was an agent, I would log into
We'll come back to that later.
I'd log into Rightmove Hub and it'd have webinars on there from Josh Vegans, Matt Giggs would do them back in the day. They'd have Tim Bannister when he's part of Rightmove. They'd have all these webinars and there'd be amazing learnings there. And I was like, why is no one else?
Look, I think with any resource, right, is what you make of it. I think, with Rightmove, there's a lot else that they offer that isn't just, hey, click this button, list your property with us.
Well, I think let's use Rightmove as the example. I think when an agent just thinks of it as it costs so much money to place a property on there, I hear that. However, do you use a Rightmove best price guide when you go out on an appraisal? It's like, oh yeah, they're amazing. Right, so
there you go.
All of that data there.
So that would be a subscription with X, Y, or Z to,
Yeah, but then when I worked at Home Search, you'd have agents say, God, I love Home Search does this, and then you've got Spectre does a little bit this, or Spriff does this, PropOp does this. I'd love if everything was just in one place. And I was like, careful what you wish for, because if there is a monopoly, you Rightmove version 2 in the PropTech world, they can charge you whatever you want.
Yeah.
Or whatever they want, should I say. So yeah, you gotta have some choice out there as well. But yeah, there's all these different resources out there, and I'm obsessed with learning, but I'm even more obsessed with implementation, execution, because too many will listen to podcasts, read the books, attend the conferences that we go to. But
so look, this is something I'm not an avid book reader, just because I just find I just don't really have the time, and it just doesn't. For me, downtime needs to be like proper switch off time, switch off brain. I do like my podcast because it's that kind of passive. Yeah. Stick it on in the car. Like I love doing that when you're doing other things, but you're free. So on the tube, in the car, wherever, that's quite good. But I think there are people out there who kind of constantly like, read this book, read that book. Oh my God, it was so amazing. Oh my God, I learned so much. And then kind of, 6 months later, you look at them in their business and nothing's nothing's really changed. Nothing's been applied. And what was really interesting chatting with you before we came in here was your bit about Daniel Priestley. So Daniel Priestley, I know who he is, but you will know him much better. For those who don't know, do you want to just say a little bit about who the chap is?
Yeah, so he's Daniel Priestley is most well known for, serial entrepreneur.
Is he originally Kiwi?
Australian.
Yeah,
so Australian, and kind of one of the stories he tells is like when he first turned up in London with no money to his name and no one knew who he was. And I can't remember the exact story, but he basically went and networked very well and connected with the right people and did something along the lines of, hey, I'm putting on an event and these sorts of people are going to be there. Would you like to attend? And then all of a sudden, he got some great people in a room and that kind of started his business. Now, interestingly, we had a meet-up probably a couple of months ago of various different kind of suppliers to the estate industry. And I set it up and I was like, right, I want to get some of the who's who and some of the up-and-coming people in the room. I digress slightly from the Daniel Priestley point, but a lot of people come up to me and go, God, you've got a great network. You seem to be well connected. You know who's doing that, who's doing that, who's doing that. So a lot of agents come to me going, who would you recommend for a CRM? Who would you recommend for direct mail or whatever it might be? So I've learnt that from Daniel Priestley. He's launched and exited, I think, at multiple seven-figure businesses. He's got Dent Global now, which
that's probably the thing he's most famous for at the moment.
Kind of coaching entrepreneurs, but then he's got Score App as well, which I'd strongly recommend for any agents watching or listening to this. I'd 100% be using it in marketing. And he's just about to release a 7th book, which is what I was at last night. But the big two for me were Key Person of Influence and Oversubscribed. So when I was at Home Search at the start, it was not fun cold calling estate agents, ringing off and getting told, yeah, fuck off, mate, or how did you get my number? It's on your website. And come on, give me some slack. You're an estate agent.
You're in sales too.
Exactly. It's funny how salespeople don't like it. And I was like, yeah, not really a fan of this. Not great at it either. Read Key Person of Influence. And I was like, okay. Basically, that's what Sam Hunter had done with Home Search. Was again good connector, good network. He found the influencers. Went and said, hey, I've got this platform, come and check it out. Then he launched his podcast.
Was super consistent online as well. And so, his little morning posts, his little videos of this is what we're up to.
And there's so many different things I could share with Sam there. But he was a key person of influence. And then when Home Search launched, like unofficial launch, let's say, it went out in the industry press. I think him and the colleague Dan at the time, like when that industry press release went out, it was just emails coming in of people wanting to join Home Search, bang, 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 on a free trial. So key person of influence and then oversubscribed. So I've used both of those principles from Daniel Priestley's books to start my podcast as a hobby before and after work. Then that within 6 months had agents saying to me, can we pay you to come and work with us? And then I went, I might be able to pay my mortgage. So quit my job at Home Search, started the business in March 23. And I've now worked with 230 plus different businesses.
Dude, that's amazing. So, I mean, it's interesting. We've come around to this in a different way. I was gonna, one of the questions I kind of teed up in my head for you was, in my eyes, has been two kind of real breakout suppliers the last 2 or 3 years, and that's you and Atomic Consultancy. I'd say you two have achieved, or the perception is that you've achieved kind of a market awareness and a client adoption rate, which is relatively unheard of in the marketplace, regardless of how that's gone about. I mean, there have been much bigger funded companies that have either launched their UK operation or with lots of money behind them and adverts and stands at events and all this sort of stuff. And they wish they could get the kind of traction that either of you guys have done. And I think what's really nice is that although you've both gone about it in a very different way, there are a lot of similarities in that you are both, you and Lucy are both completely authentically yourselves online.
Yeah.
You know your shit, you walk the walk.
She's a better dancer than me.
I mean, she's a better dancer than most of us, and that's coming from Baby Spice, so. But with Lucy, I love the fact that for what was a very kind of stuffy and small marketplace, they really breathed a lot of life. And and humour and fun into what was such a serious topic and was so kind of shrouded in mystery. And
so on that point there, I think like when I was an agent and you'd have external training, or I would seek out training, I felt it was the old guard in a suit, delivering great stuff, but I was like,
he was doing what's always been done, right?
It was
door knocking here, and flyers.
Which is same as Gemma. So, if you'd said to me 5 years ago, or just over 5 years ago when I was still an agent, right, you'd be rocking up and you'll be wearing, white trainers, cargo trousers and a hoodie. And it's like, but that's my brand, and it's, I think, relatable. Like with Lucy with the dancing and the thumbs up and stuff, like, yeah, I'm authentically being myself. And I learned a lot of that from Sam, because when I joined Home Search, it would be very like, dear Kristjan, hope you're well, kind regards. And Sam's like, mate, fuck that off.
Yeah, that's like, not how you talk to people.
Do you talk to your mum like, hi mum?
Yes.
Hope one is well. Could one come over for dinner? And like just talk normally. But that's how I've been brought up in a estate agency. Like,
yeah,
you'd say,
this is a you're a professional now, so you must converse in a professional way. Dear Mr. Roberts.
Yeah. So yeah, not that on the head, but it's like, dressed like this, can have a laugh, but I know my shit.
That's it, and I think that's the challenging thing for young people or fresh people to the industry, is you don't have that knowledge that gives you an element of confidence to be like, I know what I'm talking about. So I think that's why, you get that fumbling at the start where people start their careers, and I think that's also where a lot of the public perception falters, as you deal with young starter people in the industry, and there's this kind of perception that there is some sort of entry level requirement into our industry. And yeah, you get met with someone who, it might be their very first viewing, and you turn up and they've got the wrong set of keys and the tenants haven't been notified, and whatever else goes wrong. But yeah, no, I think it's just interesting. It's interesting coming back to network. I mean, with us, with building out Depository, I mean, Base and Depository have been two very different businesses, two very different journeys. But I mean, with Base, we always wanted to be very authentic. We hated that stuffy, suited and booted kind of routine. We never really felt that was relevant to agency. I'm sure there are certain clients it resonates with. But we were always quite rebellious in that respect, and that, always sat well with us. Like you said, there is that instant authenticity when you walk in the door. And I've, to this day, I've never met anyone like Anne in terms of, if she gets her foot through the door with an appraisal, 85, 90% of the time she's coming away with that listing, and it doesn't matter who she's in competition with. Getting her in front of that person, it's that blend of considerable knowledge. I mean, she's been an agent now for 25 years, but that totally authentic, take me as I am kind of.
I think that like authenticity side of things, again, kind of the way I present myself is that I think the modern, forward-thinking digital agent is going to go, that guy's a bit of me, whereas the older school estate agents who do things a certain way would look at the older person in the suit and go, he's going to come and do a slideshow presentation, which is literally
I'm comfortable with. It aligns with what
whereas,
we do.
Like here, for example, in Shoreditch, obviously a place very, very well inside out. I don't, but from the outside looking in, it's like I would kind of expect an estate agent to be hoodie or a bit dressed down.
Yeah, exactly. Walking around here,
suited and booted. But you go to Mayfair,
but we've still got our Foxtons. I mean, Marsh and Parsons tried and failed around here, probably largely for that reason.
Okay.
I don't think it just really sat with the local edge. Although we've got Savills around here, we've got a lot of your kind of upper tier agents around here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's taken time, and we definitely kind of shook it up. I think the rebels, when we started, didn't wear a jacket or didn't wear a tie.
Yeah.
Ooh. But yeah, I mean, I think, and look, with it's for most people, it takes experience and maturity and age to reach that. A lot of people, when you come out of school, don't know what they want to do, don't really know who they are really as a person. Very few people are fully kind of comfortable and confident in their skin as an 18-year-old or 16-year-old or, whatever. So I think that, that level of maturity and kind of security in who you are does come from an element of experience.
I've never thought of it like what you said. It's not even crossed my mind, but I 100% agree with you. Like, I think that level of maturity and understanding and knowing myself, I didn't fully know myself until the last few years, I would say.
Yeah.
It's learning. Like, I didn't realise until I left a estate agency how unhappy and unfulfilled I was, but I didn't know that, and then got offered an opportunity of home search, had this Jerry Maguire moment where it's like, if I say no to this, I could be sat in the same desk in 20 years time going, fuck, my whole life has flashed before me, and what if? And I'd always had this kind of niggle of my mates had gone to London, and whilst I didn't move to London, I was working in London. So it's like, let's go try it out. So if it doesn't work out, I can always go back and be an agent. But now I kind of get to do all the fun parts in terms of like lead generation, ideas, and estate agency, the data, all that sort of stuff. Some people say to me, do you miss it? And some days I do. But then I hear estate agents moaning about what buyers, sellers, tenants,
the good times, the bad times. Yeah, you miss the good times, but you very quickly forget about the bad times, the broken chains, well,
I wouldn't be able to necessarily be doing this sort of thing. And I wouldn't be able to attend all the different conferences and the learnings I do and different events of evenings up and down the country. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was still sat being an agent as I was. So.
But I think, coming back to kind of the original point on that one, like, much like you, Depository, it's been a slower burn for us, but we had that very early phase choice of, we had the concept, we did a very basic kind of wireframe MVP thing. And we just caught the kind of tail end of the prop tech hype cycle, kind of 2016. And we had people offering to throw money at us. We were getting 7-figure offers before we'd actually built a product. But we had to make that choice of, are we going to go that VC-backed route and give away like 90% of the business before we've even launched and go on this like really aggressive growth cycle? Or are we going to kind of trust the process, trust our knowledge, and go bit by bit, And it's definitely bum squeaky at times. But at the same time, being able to own that course, not being answerable, because we knew with what we were building, the finished product, the process, the refinement within the product was going to be everything. There was no like knobs and whistles that we were going to be able to kind of bolt onto this. We're tackling a really unsexy process.
But you've made it sexy.
Wait, it's better than babes. But yeah, we knew, and one of the things I knew was that if we raised money too fast, and I'm not against people taking investment or capital. I think too many businesses take it too early, and it puts too much pressure on the business. It puts pressure on growth too early in a business cycle. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, it puts them in a really precarious position where they're instantly giving away the lion's share of their idea. And you kind of end up basically working for someone, but you've just got a flashy title above the door. But yeah, for us, like you said, that networking, going to events, talking to people, more important, listening to people, really understanding, with us, with software. And again, it's applying, there's so many suppliers in our space, but you talk to agents up and down the country and you just have to listen. What do they like? When they talk about a supplier they love, what is it they're talking about? And interestingly, it's typically that the product keeps getting better, but it's also the fact that actually their support is there when they need it. They don't need it often, but when they need it, it's responsive, it's reactive, and it and again, usability, integrations, all this sort of stuff. But all that stuff in tech takes time and resource. I mean, we've probably spent £500,000 so far building out the depository. And it's we've still got a long way to go. There's still a lot we want to do with it. But definitely that thing of, like I said, meeting agents of all sizes from all parts of the market and just having conversations, just chatting without an agenda, without like, oh, how can I pivot this into a demo or a sale?
Well, like that the meetup recently, when I was like, there's no hidden agenda, there's no cost involved. I just want to get a group of what I think are approximately 20 suppliers to the industry, both experienced and then up and coming, in a room, so we can all like share and learn from each other. But then I was also very purposeful in trying to have agents in the room as well. So you have a foot in both camps, and then your Matt Baldocks, your Matt Giggs, Ben Madden as an example. So you get it from both sides. Yeah. You've been an agent with suppliers, you supplier to agents, which I was really, really tight on. On something you were saying, I don't know how much relevance this has, but I think it might. Have you heard the parable about the Mexican fisherman?
Is this the one about, you can build bigger boats, and then one day you can chill that,
because it's like, to your point and you said there's nothing wrong with like VC-backed business. It's deciding.
So for those who don't know that, it's all about a fisherman on a beach. Guy comes up like, oh, why don't you have a boat? Then you can catch more fish, and then when you get a boat, you can have more boats, and then you can basically end up with like a fleet of boats doing all the fishing. So one day you can just relax and sit on a beach and fish. And obviously the whole parable is you do this immense work cycle to end up
back where you were.
Back exactly where you were.
And I've been fortunate enough to see a gentleman called Sahil Bloom speak a couple of times live. And his book, 5 Types of Wealth, is brilliant. And he talks about that parable of a Mexican fisherman. And people think that the American investment manager, whatever he is right. Is wrong, and the fisherman is right. Actually, they're both right. It depends on what your version of success and happiness is. Some people want to scale really quickly and get an exit, or people go, no, I want to own 99% of it and do it.
Because what the parable doesn't talk about is you build that business, you can sell that business, and then that helps your 5 kids buy their own home, or they inherit the business and they run it and they get to sit on a beach for the rest of their lives. So it is more complex than the simple thing. And like you said, it depends what your idea of success is. And again, there's no judgment on that. Different things make us happy. If someone's idea of success is living in a kind of footballer mansion with 5 Bentleys on the driveway and going on 7-star Dubai holidays 4 times a year, brilliant. If that is genuinely what puts a smile on your face and puts a skip in your step, fantastic. For other people like me, it's the aspiration of being a hippie in the middle of the countryside somewhere, not doing too much at some point. And for others it's something different. But I think it's exactly everyone's idea of success is different, and it doesn't matter what anyone else's idea or concept or opinion on what yours is, as long as you are happy and confident in it. And I think something really interesting you touched on earlier on, something I keep kind of coming back to in a lot of these chats is, I think probably because I've got young kids, and I know at some point in the relatively distant future they will turn into young adults, and so I have this constant kind of coming back to kind of, it's not the plight of young people, but I think at the moment there's a very challenging time for a lot of young adults, and when I say young adults, I consider really anyone under kind of 30, 35. In the professional space, I think are facing kind of a myriad of challenges at the moment. We've got whatever's happening with the economy at the moment. We've obviously got this huge wave of technology and AI and what that means to businesses and corporate structure and job opportunities. And again, particularly for entry-level jobs, which is where all of us cut our teeth.
Yeah.
You know, my biggest concern is, you know, we've all started off doing those weekend jobs, those grunt jobs, those low pay jobs that, yes, they were grunt work. And yes, at the time, we probably didn't appreciate them, and probably there was an element of like, oh God, I'm having to do this again. But what we got out of that, and we didn't appreciate at the time, was that learning, that seeing other people doing the job, the making the silly mistakes and the big mistakes, the fortuitous wins, the, you know, and yeah, my concern for young people is I think a lot of young people kind of limit that pursuit of joy in the workplace. I think there's, and that I don't think is anything new. I think a lot of people get stuck into this like, oh, I've got to get a job that's got to pay the bills, which is absolutely true. But I think a lot of people, because they don't have a clear vision of what they perceive their life or their career to look like, they kind of fall into a job that they're good enough at, and it earns them enough money.
Yeah.
And they kind of allow themselves to fall into that grind. And like I said, we've all got bills to pay. There is that grind at times, but I think people forget to keep looking, keep searching, keep trying things, because you will eventually stumble into something. You might figure it out, but you'll either figure it out or you'll stumble into something where you're like, I actually genuinely fucking enjoyed this. And you might not earn any more money. But as we all know, if you got the choice between earning 30 grand and having a job you hate, and earning 30 grand and having a job that you 90% of the time you genuinely love, we know which one's winning out of that one, right?
I think a really good example for myself on what you said about stumbling into something. Like I said earlier, I was unfulfilled, not knowing how unfulfilled I was when I was an estate agent, kind of had achieved what I set out to be success. When I'd started at 18, it was like, run a branch, have a certain car in a driveway, have a missus, and own a house. Tick, 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 and get to my late 20s, and I'm like,
cool.
Is that it?
Done it.
And I didn't go looking for anything, but it found me because I put myself in the right place. So I got coached by Matt Giggs. Matt introduced me to Sam. I then started using Home Search. Me and Sam get on very well. He offers me a job. That's how that happens, and then I work hard at Home Search and then come through to where I am now. But the bit around, I've got friends who it's a paycheck, like it's not.
For sure,
it's not
for sure. And I think for the vast majority of people,
which I feel really sorry for those people, because I'm so passionate about a estate agency, and absolutely, I bounce out of bed most days. Really looking forward to doing what I do. But I think you made me think of, I think it's probably not original to him, but Jimmy Carr saying on a podcast a while ago something along the lines of, what is the number that makes you give up on your dreams? And for him, whatever it was, 30 grand a year at the time, where he did whatever he did, and he didn't go and look at his comedic route. And then he went, fuck this one day, quit that, and became a comedian full time. But he probably did loads of shitty little shows above pubs, paying peanuts to eventually get there. And really random story, very quickly, it has no relevance to this agency, but I'm pretty sure I'm right in what I'm saying. John Bishop, Scouse comedian, him and his wife, I'm pretty sure, had split up. They had divorced or were divorcing. And he was deeply unhappy in whatever job he was doing, and when they were divorcing, maybe midlife crisis sort of thing, he decided
didn't he go and do a free mic or something?
And his wife was there.
No way.
Unbeknown to him, and I don't know if his wife, ex-wife, I'm sure this is a story.
She was like, there's the man I fell in love with.
Exactly.
That's the spark in the eye, the cheeky, the banter, the laughter.
And they got back together. But I think, like you said about that young adult, so I am 34, turning 35 in January, and I find it really, really difficult thinking about this, and also like projecting it out loud in terms of, I know I've won the birth lottery, and what I mean by that is I'm a white man, middle class, born in England. I can't really get it much better, right?
No, exactly.
Then there's billions of people in the world who'd swap places with me. But then I sit here and I go, okay, the next few years are going to be really, really busy, chaotic, financially difficult in terms of the plan for me is get engaged, get married, have kids, buy a bigger house. Now, I've also got to balance into, okay, well, that all sounds very expensive. Work hard, earn more money to pay for it. Well, hang on a minute, you've got to free up more time to, I don't know, plan a wedding, then also have babies, spend more time with your partner.
So you didn't propose to Lou up in the hot air balloon?
No.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Spend more time with friends. My grandmother is 98 and I'm like, I need to see her more. Yeah. She's my last grandparent.
About to 93. Went out to see him at half
term. But you've got all, so I don't have children yet, and it's like, hang on a minute, I'm struggling to balance this, and I can be selfish right now.
Yeah.
So I can I can get up early, I can go work late, I can go play, like I can do all these things because I haven't got to worry about.
The only thing you've got to factor in is Lou, and just balance those expectations and just. Yeah, make sure you set aside a little bit of make-up time.
Yeah, so it's like, oh God, like those next few years, it's like, how on earth are you going to navigate that? But, you know, plenty of people I've spoken to, like, you find a way when it happens. But yeah, I find it really tough to look after clients, try and grow my business, look after Louise, see my family, see my friends, and then selfishly, most importantly, is look after that. If that's not looked after,
and I think that's the challenge for a lot of people now. Like we're it's a generalization, but we're so aware nowadays of the fact that we should be building some sort of career or financial legacy. But at the same time, we want to be a present partner. If parents is on the cards, you want to be a present parent.
Yeah.
You want to look after yourself. You want to have time to be productive and develop yourself as a human being. You want to look after yourself physically and mentally. Yeah. It's a lot, you know. Yeah. Clone yourself 2 or 3 times, be a breeze. Your day doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is the juggle, and that, you know, that brings us kind of onto that, you know, the conundrum of mental health nowadays. And I think, you know, that's it's the overwhelming amount of challenges nowadays, you know, the relative simplicity of our parents' or grandparents' lives in that respect. Like, I look at my dad, who was, you know, career guy, worked in advertising, you know, they had 3 kids. He never changed a single nappy. You know, throughout a lot of my youth, we lived in Gloucestershire. He would get up on a Monday morning, go to London, and he would come home Friday night, you know, and then he'd play cricket all weekend.
My kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, there was a simplicity nowadays, and I think nowadays, both for men and women, there is this expectation that you need to try and succeed and be good at all those different elements, and it is utterly overwhelming. But I think for a lot of young people coming into work, I think retirement is so insanely far away when you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old. Thinking about what your life's going to be like when you're 65, 70, you're like, don't be fucking daft.
Yeah.
You think a 35-year-old's pretty old at that time, let alone anything beyond that. And so I think, you know, for young people, those first few jobs, you know, unless you've got a clear vision, which very few do, you kind of bounce around. But I think a lot of young people get into a job that pays well enough and is they're good enough at, and they just kind of slot into that mechanism. Like you said, you know, they've got the aspiration of, right, I want to get married and I want to have kids and I want to have a house, and in order to that, I've got to achieve X, Y, Z. And I think a lot of pressures with young people today is actually in a growing parts of the country, that just is not, I mean, obviously having kids is, but getting on the property ladder in growing parts of the country is just not fiscally realistic for a growing percentage of population. And then I think when I talked earlier about the plight of young people today, and I've been really fascinated. I've seen a lot of conversation recently. There was a lady on Watkins Sofa the other day, and the topic, the classic Watkin clickbaity topic of the speech was something like I'm fed up with overprivileged 20-somethings or something like that. And it was, I think it was somebody who worked in a Belvoir franchisee, and she was talking about how she kind of tearing her hair out with getting buy-in from young people coming into the business. And I think what's really interesting at the moment, and this isn't really an issue for agency to tackle, but I think it's a really interesting topic at the moment, is I think one of the challenges facing young people is you look at kind of our generation, particularly generations before, there were kind of key achievements to achieve in life. And one of those for pretty much everyone was buy a home, own my own home, get on the property ladder, however you frame it. And I think really, and that would be a substantial motivator behind someone's attitude to their job, whether they loved the job or not. It was right to buy that house in that kind of street. It's going to cost X. I've got to be earning Y and save up Z. And that kept them very focused, because even if they didn't agree with kind of the mission of the business, or they weren't bought into the career that they were doing, there was still that cool, but I can still achieve, and the time I spend with my family on weekends and whatever else will justify that. And I think what's fascinating now is that for a growing number of young people, that is utterly inconceivable. And so I think that is a massive part of this kind of flailing youth in work at the moment, is these big anchor points in life that you would kind of attach that first 5 or 10 years of, do you know what, just get your fucking head down and just keep grinding, keep marching. And I think when you take away those big motivations, and yes, you can say, oh, but life's for living and it's experiences. And instead of that, you can go off on holidays and all this, that and the other. And yes, you create great memories and great experiences. And we'll have a little chat about your Marrakesh trip in a minute. But because that stuff is really important. But that's still nice to have, but you still want those substantial achievements in life.
So a couple of things on what you've said. With myself and Louise, I own my house and we're looking to sell my house and buy somewhere together. Louise isn't a homeowner, yet through her 20s, she's travelled the world. And I'm very envious that she's done that, and she's very envious that I'm a homeowner. And it's like, well, I sacrificed the travel. It wasn't necessarily something in my 20s that appealed to me. I was very career focused. And she was, no, I want to go travel. Now, interestingly, on some of the things you were saying as well, again, I guess it's different when you're an estate agent and you work in property, but it was drilled into me from the very start. Didn't know it at the time, but basically the owner of a business is trying to get you into debt so you can't leave. So I qualified for a car allowance very early on, and it's like, oh, by the way, it needs to be a German car, so BMW, Audi, Mercedes, whatever. It needs to be less than 3 years old at all times, blah, 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 blah. And oh yeah, it comes out of your pay packet, so you get taxed on it. Oh, I'm 18 years old, I've got horrendous insurance. So all of a sudden, I'm like, shit, all my pay packet is going on this bloody car. I can't quit my job. And then it's like, right, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. So I bought my first house at, I think I was 24 or 25, which is quite young. Yeah. I think the average first time buyer in this country is early to mid 30s. And I didn't have any financial help from my parents. And it's interesting, we were having a conversation before we hit record about the bank of mum and dad and helping plenty of first time buyers get on the property ladder. Whilst it didn't give me a deposit, I saved my deposit. I'm not naive to think, well, actually, me being able to live in a family home,
you lived at home
for plenty of time. I paid a little bit of rent, like, towards a food bill or electricity or something, right? But it's not as if I was going out and renting somewhere for
a fraction of what you would have been if you were renting a
being
room in a house.
That let's just say typical middle class upbringing meant that I was in a fortunate position that I could save money. But so you've got two different things there, and I think that sort of generation after me is now in the instant gratification world of everything's instant, right? Taxi of Uber, find your wife on Tinder, let's say. You can book a holiday very quickly. All these different things. So I think it's the same with a career.
But also look at your career. I bet you the people in the business that you worked in aren't earning much, if any, different to what you earned 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, if I look at...
And what have property prices done in your area in that 10 years?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say this earlier, actually, before we hit record. I am earning more... When did I buy a house? 10 years ago? Where are we? Oh, yeah, about 10 years ago I bought a house. So I'm earning considerably more money than I was 10 years ago because I've progressed through my career. But if I was still doing the same job role I was 10 years ago, branch manager, I'd be earning the same sort of money.
Yeah.
I look at it now and I go, how the fuck did I at that time save the money and buy that house? I've shared this story a lot of times before, and the day I exchanged contracts for my first purchase was the day the country voted to leave the EU.
Ooh.
And the solicitor rang me and said, do you want to pull out? Why would I do that? The market's going to crash, isn't it? You're an estate agent.
Yeah.
And I was like, me being a data guy, I was like, well, in 07, 08, it went like that. And then if people held on to their asset, look what's happened here. I had the opportunity to buy that house 2 years prior, but got cold feet.
Yeah.
And it had gone up £50,000 in the 2 years. So I went, fuck it, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Now, there's various different factors and variables in this. But if I didn't buy that house when I did, and I was renting at this time, so I went and tried before you buy with my other half at the time, we were renting. If I continued renting and used every excuse over the last 9 years not to buy a property, the money I would have paid on rent, the money I would have lost out on equity, the money I would have lost out on house price growth, and then various other costs involved. If I wanted to then get on the ladder today and I hadn't done them, I'd be £250,000 worse off. And that contradicts the concept to an extent what we're having out there, but like reverse it, I completely get the other side of it. Makes sense at times to rent. We're having that conversation off camera, but I don't know how 10 years on, if I was still in the same job, there's not a chance I'd be able to do that.
And that's my thing now. I think there's a lot of conversation at the moment about how do we attract the right talent into property. That's generally a challenge in agency as a whole. I don't know that that's unique to agency. I think
we get too obsessed about our own industry, don't we?
We are. I mean, I found it interesting. I always find it interesting with the interest rates now. They haven't done this. It's not going to do that. It's like, cool. Interest rates aren't there to drive the property market. It's like, I get it. Not what you wanted, but quite a lot more going on. We do get a bit obsessed, but no, I think there's a lot of conversation about, like I said, attracting talent, the attitude of younger talent within the industry, or the perceived attitude, and everything else. And I think, and again, this is much bigger than property. This is a societal issue at the moment, but I think it's being exacerbated by AI as well, because that adds this extra fear level for the younger generation. I think for us, as people building businesses and helping businesses develop, it's super exciting. But yeah, I think for young people, and I think we're missing the big piece of the puzzle. I think we're forgetting the importance of those key drivers in your life, that whether you end up doing something you love or hate, having that bona fide motivation, that landmark achievement that you can get to, and kind of whether you just get there and go, thank fuck I've done it, or whether you're like, cool, achievement 1 done, now achievement 2, achievement 3, whatever your kind of mindset is. But I think for a lot of young people at the moment, because there aren't those obvious and clear key achievements, there is that kind of that element of loss of motivation to really show up day in, day out, to put in the grind, to put in those extra hours, to offer to do a weekend viewing, to there's not really any point to make with that, but just other than I think as business owners and builders, and I've spoken to a lot of people this year about people within business and culture and maintaining that, because we've definitely had our challenges over the last 12 months. And interesting for us, and again, I consulted with a lot of people who I feel likewise, like we try to be kind of the best kind of modern employer. You know, we're very empathetic, we're very considerate, we pay kind of top 5% wages in the industry. We, you know, offer about 50% more annual leave than we're contracted to. You know, we don't do weekends, we don't do bank holidays, we close over Christmas. You know, we do all of these things, and we invest in our staff, and, you know, try and have lots of fun and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we've had some really tough times culturally this year. And interestingly, reaching out to a lot of people we both know who are absolute champions of culture and leadership and training, and, you know, the team within their business. You know, and it was really interesting I've reached out a few times this year being like, I need your help, I'm lost. And it was really interesting to get them back, go, join the fucking club. And I think that's a problem at the moment, is they're big problems to solve. That's not a problem as an employer you could easily solve. Like, oh, we just need to help them buy houses and it'll be fine. We'll get the best people. But I do think for the vast majority of people, they turn up to a job, and that job is there primarily for a reason, to put a roof over their head and food on their table and help them build a family. And I think, you know, entrepreneurially minded people, I think we approach these things in a different way. I love the evolution of business, and that motivates me more than money ever will. And I kind of take confidence in the fact that those key achievements people need, they'll happen, they'll come. I'm not really too stressed about it. That will land. But like I said, I don't know where it's going, but I'd be really interested to hear what other people think out there running businesses, and whether you can kind of reconcile with the fact that when people with a career don't have something substantial to aim for, what is their motivator to show up each day and to have buy-in and to really give a shit. But look, we'll very quickly zip onto this last little bit, because we've definitely done the chatting. But we were chatting before this about your trip to Marrakesh, to Morocco. Yeah,
so I said kind of 5 minutes ago about how Louise had travelled through her 20s, and I'd worked my way up a career ladder and bought a property. In more recent years, I've done a lot more travelling, a lot down to Louise, because she's good at organising it. But what I try and do is once a quarter have a break somewhere. So this year I've went to Poland with Louise. I've been to France playing golf. And then we went to Spain for a week. And then the last quarter was Marrakesh, which was very interesting culturally, as I said to you off camera.
You said it was a proper kind of
crazy vibe twist between Mediterranean and Arabic, and it was when worlds collide, really, because you could be in the most stunning rooftop restaurant bar thing, having the most incredible food, and there's a band playing. And then you walk downstairs out the door, and there are people on the streets eating
with monkeys and charming snakes
and snake charms and stuff. And it's like having that food on the rooftop bar, and I don't know, you're there with your knife and fork and stuff, and then you walk downstairs, and there's people literally on street corners cooking food in the corner, sitting on the floor, eating it with their hands.
And you could have gone back 50, 100 years in time, and that street scene actually wouldn't really have changed. That would have.
And it was really nice to experience that. So I've tried to, as much as I can over recent years, do a lot more travelling to expand my mind. It's quite funny actually, because one of my old colleagues at Home Search, my best friends there, a guy called Dan, was originally from Canada, and he moved back there. Very, very long story short, in the summer of 23, he was moving back to Canada. He's like, "Oh, you must come out and visit." I remember hugging him, be like, "Oh, I'm going to miss you, mate." Little tear in my eye. And I walk back to the tube and I say to Louise, "I'm never seeing him again, am I?" I'm not going to Canada. And he invites me to his wedding. And I went, I'm going there.
I'm going.
So, yeah, I think in recent years I've had definitely last 3 years, I've had a fuck it mentality to, if you get invited somewhere, say yes, figure it out later.
Yeah.
And it's worked really well.
Yeah, I'm definitely a yes man. I think there's a lot of the power of no, and I've talked about the power of no on quite a lot of chats. The power of no in a business is really important, but I think as a life opportunity, and it comes back to things like, Branson's kind of screw it, let's do it attitude. This thing of and the analytics of men versus women at work, that kind of like, do you know what, just say yes. Don't worry about can you do it, how are you going to do it, just say yes and figure the rest of the shit out later. And if it goes brilliantly, then great. And if it doesn't, you're still learning something. I
think whether it's professionally, personally, say yes, figure it out later, make mistakes along the way, because by the time you've figured out you've made your mistake and then you iterate and make it even better, the other, let's say, rival is still umming and ahhing over whether they should say yes or no.
And also, what I've also found, talking about mistakes, it's fascinating how often mistakes become some of the best lessons you ever learn and turn you into a better human, a better professional, whatever. But also I find not just mistakes, but things that feel like they go wrong. I mean, Anne and I talk about this regularly throughout our course as business partners together of nearly 21 years. There are key events throughout that journey. Right from the offset, when we were starting base, we got absolutely shafted on our first shop the day before we were due to sign the contract. And every single one of these things felt epic in the moment they happened and potentially world-ending. And yet every single time turned out to be the best thing at that moment in time that happened to us.
It's a great saying, the best, get it right, Simon. The best gifts in life come badly wrapped.
Yeah.
Which I think sums up what you were just saying.
I like that. Which is why I always give my gifts unwrapped in a paper bag.
When I was younger, still at home with my parents, teenage years where I would have had a paper round and maybe was waiting in a pub, so I was earning a bit of my own money, and you're expected to maybe buy some gifts for your family, which is fair enough. I would basically have like a Tesco carrier bag, and I'd give a present to my dad. He'd open it. I go, right, can you give me the bag back? And I'd go back to my bedroom, get the next gift from the wardrobe, put it in a bag and go back.
Wow, I wasn't that bad. I would wrap stuff in shit though, like aluminium foil from the kitchen drawer. I'd be like, that'll do. It doesn't even need sellotape. It stays folded.
There you go.
And then after you fold it, put it back in the kitchen drawer. We could use that on the roast potatoes later.
There you go.
Dude, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've done our hour of chit chat. We've done our waffling. It's been great fun. I love watching how you do and how you grow and how you go about that. So more credit to you, dude. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for spending time with me today. Guys, if you're not familiar with Simon, obviously jump on the website, find out more, have a chat, engage. Like a lot of great agency supporters, Simon shares an incredible amount of information that is free and available through his social channels, website, everything else for you to implement a lot of what he practices and preaches and educates. And obviously when you see that stuff start to work in your business, then pick up the phone, drop Simon an email and actually pay him to do more exciting stuff with your business. But for many of you out there, it's a bit of a tough market at the moment. Don't make the classic mistake of going, oh, it's a tough market, we've got to rein stuff in. Absolutely look at your business for sure, do your audit and trim the fat where needed. But where it comes to marketing, every industry, every business Bible says that the worst time to cut your marketing is when times are tough, because all you're going to do is you're going to strangle your supply right now, but also as the market recovers, and we know property always recovers. You want to be preparing yourself so as that picks up, you are at the forefront of that and you're maximizing that. So when you're going over your budgets, save a little bit of budget for some end of tenancy software, and keep the rest of it for your marketing. And I said, if you're not already talking to Simon, get on the socials, get on the website, reach out, have a chat, see him talk at something somewhere, which is everywhere, and enjoy. At the next Friday?
Maybe.
We'll
see.
Elusive. That sounds like a no to me. Guys, see you soon. Bud, thanks for coming. Take care. Bye.